Good morning. Well, last time I went over verse 2 of chapter 3 of the Sefer Yetzirah, the ancient Jewish book of creation. And now I want to go over verse 4 from that same chapter. We're not doing the entire Sefer Yetzirah, all the verses of it in video explanations. We're just skipping around a bit at this point so that we get the most important stuff, the essence of it. Okay, so let's see if I can share my screen here. And here we are, Sefer Yetzirah 3:4. So first I'll read through the late Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's translation, and then we'll look at my translation. They're pretty much the same. Okay, he wrote three mothers, and then he has AMSH, which is just his acronym standing for Aleph Mem Shin. So three mothers, Aleph Mem Shin, and the universe are air, water, fire. Heaven was created from fire. Earth was created from water, and air from breath decides between them. I'm going to add a comma here because I'm a big fan of what we call the Oxford comma. Do it right. Okay, my translation. Three mothers, Aleph Mem Shin in the world. Air, water, fire. Heaven was created from fire, and earth was created from water, and air from spirit breath decides between them. Okay, next slide. This is going to be a short presentation. I have only this slide and then one more. So, the pattern of three is now extended to heaven and earth and the air in between. This arrangement will be seen again in an upcoming passage where we will find the same pattern in human beings with fire above and water below and air in between. Okay, for humans, that's the sort of the electrical fire of the brain. And below we have the water in the belly, and in between is the air in the lungs. And one thing the Sefer Yetzirah does with this and other patterns is it wants to show that these same patterns occur in different contexts, right? So it's sort of a fundamental pattern in the universe. And the Sefer Yetzirah is basically suggesting you can exchange one background for another, one context for another, in other words, and still find that same pattern operating. So, as I think I've mentioned before, we have this pattern of three occurring in the very first verse of the Sefer Yetzirah, where it says that the universe, God created the universe using story, number, and communication. That's Sefer, Safar, and Sipur. So there, and that, as we've mentioned, corresponds to right brain, left brain, and communication between them. We also have the triad of fire, water, and air. Water and fire being opposites, and air representing the interaction between them, literally in the form of steam. And now we have the same triad, the same rule of three of one thing opposite another, communication between them, appearing with the heavens above, earth below, and the air in between. Okay. And in human beings, with the fire in the brain above, water in the belly below, air in the lungs in between. Okay, now I'll continue with this sentence. We could also make sense of this pattern directly by noting that the majority of the earth is covered with water. Above that is the atmosphere or air, and in the light of the stars would suggest fire even to the ancients. And this completes in this passage the decomposition of space via the pattern of three. And a final note. In Sefer Yetzirah 1:13, we read that three of the 10 Sefirot correspond to spirit breath, water, and fire. And it should be clear that since the three mother letters correspond to air, water, and fire, there is an association between these three Sefirot and the three mother letters. Furthermore, in the later Sephirotic or Kabbalistic tree of life, if you prefer, these three mother letters and their elements correspond to the three horizontal paths on the tree. So here I have the model for that Sephirotic tree of life. There are three horizontal paths. The top one is Sheen, which corresponds to fire. The middle one is Aleph, which corresponds to air. And the bottom one is Man, which corresponds to water. So I've mentioned before that in the Sefer Yetzirah, the model for the universe that it gives is a cube, right? You have in this model, three spatial axes, 6 directions in space, and a 0 point. And those correspond to the 10 Sefirot. This was part of the original definition of the Sefirot. Later on, that cube was essentially unfolded and made into a tree. But we'll see this in later presentations. The Sephirotic or Kabbalistic tree of life, it still contains many of the elements found in the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah, it's literally the mother document that gave birth to all of this later Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. So even though it seems like a lot of people and maybe a lot of scholars ignore this text or don't understand it, it's really very, very important. Okay, that's my last slide, so I'll stop sharing. And I'll say goodbye, shalom. I wish everyone peace and wholeness in the days to come. And I hope to see you later. So long.